To the order of the meeting of the ASDB Board of Directors. It's 4 o'clock. So we'll start with 1.2. We're going to start with the information item of the introduction of new board members. As you guys can see, I have 3 new people sitting up here with me, which we're very, very, very excited about. I'm going to introduce them and have them give a little bit of about themselves and their background and why they're here for ASDB. First, we're going to have Diana Herron. Do you mind sharing?
Hello, everyone. What would you like me to elaborate on?
How about your background and what brings you to ASDB?
Sure. I will make sure that I don't go on too long, wasting anyone's time. But hello, everyone. My name is Diana Herron. And I am very excited to be here with everyone else tonight. This is my first meeting as part of this board. I will start off with the reason why I wanted to serve on this board. And that reason is because I was a former school teacher and school administrator, and I have a passion for students and their success and their future endeavors. I believe that school and our education is invaluable in the strength of deaf people's lives and their successes out in the greater society. I've seen a huge difference when they are properly educated and prepared for their future versus those who did not have those adequate opportunities. So, that said, a little bit of my background, like I said, a previous school teacher as well as school administrator. I was also a staff development coordinator, and all of that experience was with the California School for the Deaf up in Fremont. That was approximately 15 years or so. The larger part of my 30-plus years of career experience was in the relay and telecommunication services and the video relay service system. I started off as a manager, mentor, employee, and I would help our staff with floor duties. I transitioned into a trainer position, and I trained our relay operators. And then I moved up the ranks to Director of Customer Service, which was the longest portion of my career in that telecommunications world. Finally, I was the Vice President of Communication Services for the Deaf in sales because they were trying to establish a new program called the Direct Video Call. So, all told, my entire life has really been about serving our deaf community.
Thank you so much. Shauna, I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Tamiko.
Hi, I'm Shauna Tamiko. I teach in the Peoria district. I've taught general education, and this is my 3rd year of special education. From that perspective, seeing what it takes to manage individualized education plans and meeting the individual needs of students, when I began to learn more about the ASDB community and entire schools and teachers who are certified and trained to teach and work with and grow this unique community, I couldn't imagine what that would look like if I had a student in my room without all the assistive technology that the school has and the support and the education and the experience that the teachers had. So after visiting the schools and getting a look at the programs and the students and the things that the schools had to offer, my heart was just very open to, I would like to serve in some way outside of what I am doing. And this opportunity had come up, and so here I am. I've been in Arizona my whole life, grandkids, and my first meeting, so.
Thank you so much, Shauna. And then we have Bill Kohler.
Thank you. Bill Kaler, so that we
I'm
get
sorry.
that. It's okay, it's often mispronounced. If it had an R in there, I'd be a furniture magnet and I wouldn't be here. Or if I had not enough letters, I'd be a plumbing magnet and I would not be here. but we'll just say that I'm here because I want to be here. My career has lasted over, well, to date, close to 50 years, which sounds like a lot since I only started when I was 7 years old. It started because I understood there was a shortage of teachers in this area. And I was trained as a secondary education teacher, and I thought I would be teaching social studies or German at a high school. But I coached the wrong sport, and there weren't enough special teachers or teachers of German in the district. So a little bird came by and said, we need teachers in this field. It's for children that are either blind or visually impaired. And I thought, I wanted to teach, so let's give a shot at that. And I did, and I'm glad I did. It's been a very rewarding career. I started as a teacher in Tucson Unified School District as a TDI, teacher students with visual impairments. I moved from Tucson to New York, where I became a principal at the New York School for the Blind. Left there and came to Texas, where I was a principal at the Texas School for the Blind for several years. We were able to start a lot of very innovative programs there that serve not just the children on the campus, but children around the state. From there, I went to Wisconsin because New York wasn't cold enough. I needed to figure out how cold could you really get, and I found out. I was a superintendent at the Wisconsin School for Visually Handicapped for 5 years. Left there and came back to Texas. I worked in public school programs for a number of years there before coming back to Arizona. When I came back to Arizona, I was a regional director at the Flagstaff and Holbrook office, eventually coming down to Tucson, where I ended up as the assistant superintendent before I left due to health reasons. Why am I here? I have seen over the years teachers lament that their caseloads are too big, that their jobs are ill-defined, that the population of children served is ever-changing. There doesn't seem to be enough training to do what needs to be done. In my dissertation research, it was a topic for training needed and training received by teachers of the visually impaired, and that has served kind of as a core unit for me to make sure that teachers are supported in the field. And the only way to do that is to know what they do. And I've asked some pretty hard questions about what is it that teachers are actually expected to do. When I found out those answers, it put me into a different mode in addition to pre-service training, but how do we keep teachers in the field? If you have a caseload that is overburdening, you're going to leave. If you have ill-defined population, you're going to leave. If your caseload is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you're going to leave. So my work lately, the last several years, has been doing research and analysis, presenting it at state, regional, and international conferences on how do we keep people in the field, because it doesn't do us any good to keep recruiting people if we're just going to burn them out. That commitment to children with visual impairment doesn't stop there, and it will be a commitment to all the children that we have, both on our campuses in Tucson, here at PDSD, as well as students around the state. I look forward to working with you all, with the parents, with the students as much as we can, and with our local school districts to make sure that every student served by ASDB gets the best possible services they can so they can be successful when they leave high school. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're very excited to have all of you guys' experience here on the board so we can be the best that we can be for ASDB. The next item is a call to the public, and we've had no public comments submitted. So we can go right on to, oh, yes, just kidding. I forget that every time, and I was the secretary. I can't believe this. Thank you. I will defer to my acting secretary, Linda Bowe, for a roll call.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Linda Bowe. I am here. Brittany Buchanan.
I'm present.
Shauna Tamaiko.
Present.
Michael Gordon.
I'm here.
Excellent. Bill Kaler.
Present.
Diana Heron.
Present.
Colette Chapman.
Present.
And Earl Terry.
He's not present.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. We can now move on to the superintendent's report.
Good afternoon.
Board President Buchanan, members of the board, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, Deputy Assistant Superintendent Kachov, and members of the ASDB community. Welcome to our September 11th, 2025 board meeting. I am thrilled to see our 3 new board members here with us this evening. And I really enjoyed listening to your experience, your knowledge, and your expertise that you are going to be bringing to the ASDB Board of Directors. That is really outstanding. I also wanted to thank you for your willingness to give ASDB your time, your efforts, and your energy, your commitment to providing support to our work and providing the best educational supports that we can to all of our students that we serve in the state of Arizona. I want to also thank you for taking the required training courses for open meeting law. I realize it does take a bit of time for the 3 of you new board members to get through. And I also wanted to thank all of our board members for taking the annual required training on conflict of interest, as well as filling out that informational form, the disclosure form. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that, as that is required for us. We do have one more requirement that was recently added that I wanted to let you know about. You may have noticed on the first page of the agenda, there is a box that talks about the need to recuse yourself, or recusal requirements. At any time, if there is a vote that you think you have a conflict of interest regarding, and you decide to recuse yourself from that vote, we now have a form for you to fill out. That form Leticia currently has, and she will provide a copy of that to you to fill out as necessary, and then you would give that to the board president, who would pass that along to Leticia and I, and we would make sure that is filed in the particular folder along with your disclosure form. If you were to recuse yourself, understand that a recusal is different than an abstention. Abstention means that you are choosing not to vote on something, whereas a recusal is a conflict of interest. So we have added that requirement. Okay. The second thing I wanted to talk about is the archery or the archer. There's a Chinese philosopher, Confucius, who has a quote talking about archery. He says that the superior man, which I will change to person, the superior person, when releasing his bow and arrow to the target, may miss the bullseye. The superior archer, when they miss the bullseye, may choose to blame the weather, the sun in their eyes, the rain on their face, the wind affecting their aim, or blame other people in the audience because of the noise or the distraction. Or they may blame their equipment, the bow, the string, the arrow. Or the feathers along the arrow. The superior archer does not blame any of those things. They look to themselves. They take accountability for their own failing. So what do? The superior archer will then practice, of course, try to improve. They may find someone else who does a better job than they have done and ask for training, ask for instruction, mentorship, a better way to improve their aim. So that in the future, they hit the bullseye. And that is ASDB. We are responsible for our students. Our state law says that we will provide school programming for students who are deaf, hard of hearing, blind, visually impaired, and deafblind. We have been successfully doing that. Our vision and our mission state that we are committed to excellence and innovation and providing education to our students. We have been successfully doing so. We are committed to maintaining focus on that bullseye. That bullseye, for us, is a commitment to language acquisition and development, toward academic growth and achievement, toward social and emotional growth, and toward preparing our students for life after high school. And we have been doing so. The deaf community and the blind communities, parents, and other stakeholders have had a vested interest in what we've been doing. And we have always had some scrutiny of our work. We have had continuous feedback about how we are able to improve and provide better education and supports for our students. That is not new. What is new over the last 4 years is that scrutiny of us as an agency has increased significantly. 4 years ago, the Arizona Auditor General, or the AAG, initiated the 2022 sunset audit process of ASDB. That started around the summertime in 2021. They completed their first report around July of 2022. That report had 1 finding and 8 recommendations. At that time, we thought that that was fantastic. It was a wonderful report. At that time, during the July 2022 board meeting, the president at the time, David Nigro, commended ASDB for our outstanding work. So, of course, when you have a sunset audit, you will then have a 6-month, 12-month, and 24-month follow-up. The Arizona Auditor General wants to ensure that we are implementing the recommendations. The 24-month report was published in February of 2025. That report provided some information about the things that we had completed, as well as areas where we were still in progress of implementation or we had not yet begun implementation. And then, in March of 2025, the Arizona Auditor General initiated the 2026 sunset audit. Started immediately after the 2022 audit. So the 2026 sunset audit started in March of 2025. The Arizona Auditor General contracted with 2 private firms, one of whom is conducting a forensic audit of our finances, and the second is conducting a performance audit. Over the last 6 months, both auditors have asked ASDB for a multitude of documents and information, of data, of paperwork, spreadsheets, materials. For the performance auditor, we have provided almost 3,000 files. For the forensic auditor, we have gone through the Arizona Department of Administration to provide 6 years worth of financial documentation and data. It has been a very heavy workload for us, but we have worked diligently to respond timely to every request we've been given and to complete each of those in a timely manner. So far, we have been successful. So, with that observation and that scrutiny, we have found it to be overall beneficial. We have made systemic improvements, and I'll give you 2 examples. The first is that the 2022 sunset audit stated that we must have a 3-year capital improvement plan. We agreed with that finding. We contracted with an architecture firm, and they developed and designed our master facilities plan. We brought that plan to the board. You reviewed and approved that plan, and we have been using that as a guide for our decision making since then. The second example is that in the 2022 sunset audit, it was stated that we were not doing a very good job of documenting and tracking our complaints from students, parents, and the community. So, we created a new position, which is called the ADA and 504 Compliance Coordinator. We contracted with a company to help establish a new platform for us. So we were able to set up an online complaint portal. So anyone is able to go online and fill out that form and submit that to us. We are now doing a much better job of tracking every complaint that we receive through the system. Is it perfect? Not quite. We still have a lot of room to improve. But we do have a system in place now that a year ago we didn't have. We are responding to recommendations, and we are making the effort to implement improvements in our systems. I want to talk about a concept called the Heisenberg effect, which I will sign as this Heisenberg effect. It involves physics and a concept that has been applied to psychology, and it simply states that when a group of people observes another group of people, the simple act of observation causes changes within the observed party. So as ASDB, when we are being observed, when I am being observed, my behavior changes. Fortunately for us, those changes have been positive. We have made systemic improvements. But we have to be mindful and careful that we don't lose our focus. Our focus is what I mentioned before, our students. That early language acquisition, language development, academic growth and success, social emotional growth, and preparedness for our students to go into the world when they graduate high school. It is and has been that. We have to maintain a strict focus on that. And again, fortunately for us, we have been successfully doing that. I just had a meeting with our educational leadership this afternoon. I asked them to talk about their goals for this year. And I listened to each of them share, and all of their goals were focused on our students. What we need to do to provide the best possible education and supports for them, which is wonderful. We have the best leaders in the country. I am fully convinced of that. I greatly appreciate all of you being here to support our work. So thank you so much. And I am happy to take any questions.
As part of the, this is Bill Kaler, as part of the follow-up on successful students post-high school, do we have data about graduates and what's happened to graduates over the last year, 2 years, 5 years? Or some pattern of what's happened to those students that attended the campuses that have graduated?
Yes, we do have post-school outcome data, and I have perhaps Assistant Superintendent Ketchoff can speak more to that.
Sure. Good evening, Board President, board members. We do collect the post-school outcome data. Scott Matson with our CTE program is in charge of that. As Superintendent Reichman mentioned today when we were talking about our SMART goals, one of Scott's is to also try to track that for our itinerant students, not just the day students. And so that's one of his goals moving forward. If you'd like at a future board meeting for us to present on some of that data, we definitely can put that together for you.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. I think we're done.
Is there any other questions for Superintendent Reichman? I appreciate your story about the archer and how we can also reflect on improvement to move forward to a common goal. With no other questions or comments for Superintendent Reichman, we can move forward to Assistant Superintendent of Agency, Shannon Cooper.
Good afternoon, Acting Board President Buchanan, Superintendent Reichman, Deputy Assistant Superintendent Katchoff, members of the board, ASDB community, and staff members. These last few weeks have been an exciting time of the year for the Operations and Support Services team as we all help welcome the students, staff, and their families back to our schools. The teams have been working diligently to support the instructional staff so that all of our students have what they need to be successful learners this new school year. The information technology team has been busy setting up equipment and electronic devices while advancing key infrastructure projects. The transportation team has also been busy working with our Director of Special Education on making changes to how, when, and where we transport our students based on guidance we received working with the Department of Education. And our facilities team has been actively addressing the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning issues on both campuses, and also trying to keep up with other maintenance requests due to our aging infrastructures. We have about 70 vacant positions open, consisting mostly of teachers, drivers, athletic coaches, interpreters, aides, and interveners. So our human resources team continuously works on addressing our ongoing recruitment and retention challenges. And you may recall, typically every year, we request board approval for salary increases for staff. However, this year, due to budget constraints, we are not able to fund any salary increases. Included in today's consent agenda, item 6.2, which is the approval of pay schedule changes, is a request to modify the interpreter salary schedule, where we are adding the placement and levels for each of the interpreter classifications. And additionally, for the classified special recruitment salary schedule, we are either removing old or adding new position classification titles. No other changes are being made to the salary schedules as noted in the summary. And as it pertains to our fiscal position, for the 2025 budget year, the most recent projections are showing that we will end with another shortfall, closer to about $1.4 million. If you recall, earlier in the year, we originally estimated the shortfall to be about $2.3 million. Most of that difference has come from the institutional voucher revenues for itinerant programs coming in higher than anticipated due to some of the funding changes where we've changed some of our students from fee-for-service to voucher, and that came up to about $5 million higher than what we projected. However, expenditures came in $2 million higher than what we projected for payroll and ADOT transportation-related items. After receiving the agency's operating budget for 2026, from the state, which totaled about close to about $69 million, the budget team completed and submitted the agency's 2027 budget request 2 weeks ago to the state's Office of Strategic Planning and Budgeting, which totaled about the $69 million. It did not this year include any funding issue requests. We budgeted about $53 million in payroll for about 700 staff, which is close to about 562 FTEs, and $16 million in non-payroll costs. And we used the count of 1,807 students to help with projecting revenues. And over the last several years, you've heard our student counts be closer to about 2,000. This time last year, it was 1970. So no, I just mentioned 1807 is the number that we received back in early July. Additionally, a few weeks ago, the 2027 Capital Improvement Plan was presented by our Director of Operation to the State's Department of Administration, and I believe it totaled about $96.4 million. $66 million of it was for capital request, and $30 million of it was for budget renewal needs, or building renewal needs, excuse me. We are waiting to receive what those awarded capital and building renewal projects will be for 2026, and we hope to be informed of what those projects will be within the next couple of weeks. In the interim, we continue to try to fund what we can internally from our operating budgets for some of those ongoing capital project requests. In the operating budget for 2026, the state allocated an additional $354,000 to our general fund to help with ongoing operating costs. The state has projected, though, that our land endowment revenues will be about $400,000 less than last year. However, they are projecting that our classroom site fund revenues will go up, which we guesstimate to be about closer to $250,000 this year. Additionally, the remaining balance of the $2.1 million that we received back in 2019 to expand our Birth to 3 program has been repurposed or reallocated to the Arizona Department of Administration. And that balance that remained was about $393,000. And that will be used to help ASDB with some of our building renewal needs per the state. Over the last year or so in our board meetings, you've heard me mention our financial challenges that we've been facing and the steps we've been taking to ensure a strong and stable future for our students. However, while working on modifying the agency's budget for this year, preparing the budget request for 2027 with the team, and looking ahead, it is apparent that with the projected enrollment declines, it will directly impact our revenues, combined with ongoing rising costs that exceed the state funding. Financial challenges will continue for ASDB. And unfortunately, our current funding levels are no longer enough to support the expenses that we've continued to carry on the recent years. So to address what continues to loom over us, unfortunately, we're going to have to continue to make those tough choices and look into making those thoughtful decisions as we look at our staff, our programs, and our services, as well as our facilities. We have carried over into this year a lot of the cost reduction measures that we implemented last year. And in the upcoming weeks, the superintendent has set up meetings with each of the individual departments where we'll be having more in-depth discussions and detailed analysis and looking at accountability, looking at how we can guide planning and priority decisions, and where we can look at identifying any additional changes that we can make throughout the school year. The leadership does realize that our campuses are already operating with cuts in their costs, in their positions, changes to the way that they've been formally operating some of their programs and services. And we continue to be reminded of more and more responsibilities that they've taken on. However, we need to be able to face the reality of what continues to face us with the declining student counts and our ongoing budget challenges, while at the same time looking at how we can maintain our aging facilities and ensuring fiscal responsibilities. So with that said, we're proactively looking at how we can adjust our budget to reflect the new student count realities and look at how we can best ensure funding is going where it serves our students best. So accountability of ASD's fiscal resources is very important. We continue to try to be as transparent as we can be with how every penny of ASDB's budget is received, as well as how it is spent. We've looked at classroom spending, non-classroom spending. We've also looked at cost per student. And again, as we look at meeting with each of the individual departments, we are looking at how we can make those data-informed and evidence-based decisions. So as Superintendent Reichman mentioned, the focus will be looking at the priority and education of our students. But at the same time, we need to make sure we're looking at every nook and cranny for how we can strategically change and look at striking a balance between our fiscal responsibilities and maintaining that education for our students as well as those support services. Because as you've heard me say before, less students translates to fewer resources, and it's not just money. So with all that said, I do want to mention that the superintendent's team is appreciative and grateful for the support and contributions everyone continues to make as we work collaboratively together to support the agency and ensure the effective management of our resources. So there are no other updates to provide at this time, and that concludes my report. I'm open to answer any questions or address any comments you may have.
Linda?
This is Linda Bove speaking. For those who are on the phone, this is Linda Bove speaking. Thank you for your report, and Annette as well. I liked your analogy about the archer. I I have always listened to your reports, Shayna, about the management of the funds and the big responsibility that's on us as well as the board to continue keeping things in operation. You talked about a teacher shortage, and I'm wondering how we are balancing the teacher shortage and the burden, the additional burden that's going onto the teaching staff that we have, and avoiding that burnout that would result when we have our reduction in numbers. Do we need to hire more people? I'm trying to understand the logistics of it all. How would we find that balance that you spoke of in terms of preventing burnout among those teachers and keeping the school in operation and keeping kids on the pathway toward a successful achievement? So do we have more to talk about in that regard? I mean, maybe because of declining numbers, we don't need to hire more people. So I'm trying to figure out that equilibrium in all of these areas. So can you speak to that?
That is a great question. Linda, I will actually defer to Deputy Assistant Superintendent Katchoff or Assistant Superintendent Reichman to speak more to those educational priorities and goals.
Perfect, thank you.
And this is Oren. I can start. I mean, there is no silver bullet to doing it. And I think that's why for definitely over a year now, we've been saying that these are tough conversations that we need to have. What we're doing is ensuring that we're looking at the IEPs and that the services that are written in the IEP are being delivered. It is a fine balance of when delivering what has to happen in the IEP, as well as what has to happen at a state level in the classrooms, of ensuring the teachers have the support. I'll be sharing in my report that just for the month of August, we've averaged about 30 informal classroom observations between the two campuses. These are not evaluative, they're not punitive. It's really for us to go in and try to get a pulse of what's going on, so then we can come back together and say, this is what seems to be working. These are the areas that seem to be under a lot of pressure.
Thank you. This is Diana speaking. I can appreciate the challenges because we can only do so much with the finances we have, and it's a significant struggle. I understand that. My concern here is trying to keep that balance and keep everything balanced out while we are maybe missing opportunities for recruiting higher quality teachers and staff members, because historically, it has been proven throughout the nation that when you have higher quality staff members and teachers, you attract students. You attract more numbers because parents see the caliber and the outcomes, and they become desirous of attending your institution. So we can't, I know that's not an issue that we can solve right now this year. It is a problem that is far-reaching. But we do need to start thinking about the next 5 years and forward. How do we expand the teaching staff? When you expand, you will see enrollment increase as well. I do believe that is true.
One of our challenges is really the standard of the school district, having the same standards that other school districts have. It's not standardized. Sorry, interpreter error. One of the same, it happens in other school districts. Other school districts are facing that the number of students that they have enrolled in their school is declining. So we've had a lot of discussions on this here in the board. And we have talked about the birth rate, the amount of babies being born every year has been declining consistently. And because babies in general, from those numbers that are declining, it means that babies who are deaf and hard of hearing, babies that are blind and visually impaired are also starting to decline. So all over the state of Arizona, school districts are starting to close their elementary schools because they don't have enough students. They have a larger impact going forward on graduation over the next 4 to 5 years that you'll be seeing. And looking at the number of students coming into kindergarten is about half the number of students that are in high school. So that impact in public education is also having an impact on us. Our declining enrollment is not one program. It used to be that Tucson campus, you would see every year there was a slight reduction, but then other programs were more stable or maybe even increasing. But over the last 3 years, we have seen all of our program numbers of students are going down. Even the itinerant services and the regional co-ops, that number is also decreasing. It used to be that we served, I believe, more than 1,000 students around the state of Arizona. And currently, that has gone down to about 900-ish. So we are starting to see similar kinds of declines. So for us, yes, we are interested in hiring as many, bringing in as many students as possible. We do want to do that, and we want to continue to do that. But we also have to look at the numbers of babies being born, that 0 to 3. 3 years ago, we had about 530 families. If my numbers might be just a little bit off, but I think that's, if I'm remembering correctly, we had about 530 families in our 0 to 3 program. It was the highest ever. And you could see that increase every year. We were serving more and more families with babies that were identified as deaf and hard of hearing, blind, visually impaired, and deaf-blind. And then 3 years ago, that 530-ish families that were all over the state, it was awesome. And I believe that we are serving almost all of the families in the state currently. That's my belief. But then 2 years ago, that number dropped. And last year it dropped. So if I'm right, I think moving forward we will see a continued drop, a continued decline because of the birth of babies declining. So also declining in deaf, hard of hearing, visually impaired will parallel to the general drop in the babies being born. So it's a truly complex situation. And for us planning for the future, we will still be here, but how many students we serve and their needs might have to adapt.
Bill?
I am doing other work studies, and I'm happy to work with any of you on the board to do another work study session to discuss this in depth more.
Sorry to interrupt. I think I jumped ahead of Bill, but I wanted to co-sign that idea of doing another work study with us again. This is Linda speaking. Thank you.
Hi, this is Bill. I'd welcome that work study as well. And this is no aspersions in anything. Having just received my appointment letter not that long ago, and then digging into what the agenda looked like, and that was that was a personal problem, not your IT people. So I figure out how to make this stuff work. But over the past couple of days, I've just done some raw data analysis, is the best I can say. And I only started with the VI population, and the same thing needs to be done with the children that are deaf, hard of hearing. But looking at raw data, Arizona does not collect data on how many children have visual impairment. Appalling. I think we can work on that with our friends at the state. That being said, if we just look at the incident rate approximately, we're looking at approximately 7,000 children in the state that have visual impairment, given the incidence rates. Given the number of teachers that are recorded through ADE, it looks like there is a ratio of about 1 to 45, meaning one teacher for every 45 children that have a visual impairment. Even more appalling. As I look at how those children are served, I can't imagine all of those children are being served at the maximum level that they need, simply because there's not enough people to do it. And this is what I've spent the last several years of my work analyzing in depth what's causing that kind of a problem. I firmly believe that there's more than enough children that need service that we can do a wonderful job, both for children with visual impairment and hearing impairment. But when I look at a ratio of 1 to 45, and then I attend conferences around the state, and I hear teachers say my caseload's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's no relief in sight, then we stop looking at one thing and we start finding out what relief is necessary. If more money was the answer, then we would have solved this problem a long time ago. Systemic changes need to occur. And knowing that there is potentially a ratio of 1 to 45, even at the best, it looks like it's around 1 to 40, nobody's going to get anything out of it other than frustrated teachers, frustrated children, frustrated school districts, and our outcomes are not going to look so good at the end, whether it's a child on a campus program or a child in the local school district. So I welcome a work study because there's a tremendous amount of data that's out there that's available to us, and certainly we can go into greater detail with that. Given that, when I looked at the number of, I think the school districts that we serve through the co-ops, as I counted, it was like 14 school districts. Is that about right? How many?
We work with
No. How many school districts are registered?
220?
Well, I know there's 236 school districts. How many of those districts do we have a contract with?
I think almost all of
I
them, around
believe-
230, I believe.
We have 230 contracts because in the website
School
it shows.
district, our agreements with them, yes.
Okay. In the website it says for each co-op there are districts that we have relationships with through the interim agreement or the agreements. And there's only 14 that are listed there. So what's the difference between that 14 and 200 school districts?
Do we want to have our Director of Itinerant Services Program come and
thank you.
respond?
Bill, can I just make a note really quick?
Yeah.
You're a very fast speaker, and if we could slow down just a little
You bet.
bit, give our interpreters a little bit of a
That's fine.
ability to catch up. Thank you.
And if I say something that you don't understand, tell me and I'll reword it. But thanks, Jason. So tell me how this is, what's the gap? What's the gap going there?
Sure, and good afternoon, board. And what the biggest thing is with our agreements, it's all of our agreements are the district initiates them with us. So it's the district's responsibility to provide the FAPE for all those students. So it is only when they ask for our support do we get involved. So it is their responsibility to identify those students and then get them services, whether it's through us or other contracted services. Some of those districts use FBC.
Okay.
Some other districts have their own in-house teachers. Others might use part-time contract workers. So we only support those districts that request services from us, and that could be any school district or charter school. And we've even done partial services where they might have additional, like they only want us to take certain kids. So they'll have FBC working on some students and we work with other students.
So it's my understanding that FBC primarily serves the Phoenix metropolitan area.
Yes and no. So they also have services up in northern Arizona as well.
Okay. So we have 236 school districts in the state, over 400 charter schools. ballpark 7,000 kids with a visual impairment, what we're assuming, and I'll just use that in a polite way, is that every other student, except for that group that we currently are working with, are receiving some level of appropriate services. Anecdotally, I'm hearing that's not necessarily the case. So I think there's a role for us to expand how we look at those services being provided so that through either regional co-op programs, which I think is our best bet, is to increase the number of districts that we have direct services with. Not to increase the money, that's part of the game, I understand that. We're not looking to increase our funds because we're just going to grab kids. That's the wrong thing to do. But I can't, and I'm just trying to get my head around how that many children are receiving that high level of service that meets the federal guidelines for it. Recent Supreme Court decision suggested that as well. And I think there's a way for us to work toward expanding the role of our co-ops. I know there's only 3 now, there used to be 5, right. And I understand that has dropped. So I'll be happy to work with that work study group to see how we might be able to expand that.
No, that sounds great.
Good. Okay, thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Was that better? You tell me, was that not so much? I'll slow it down. Thank you.
Yeah, do we have any other questions? Shayna, thank you. And I know that Mike Gordon would probably make the same plug, but I'm going to make it. I just sat on my first finance committee last week, and I would encourage all of our new board members to come to our finance committee. It was a wonderful experience. They do a really deep dive into how everything works within our agency financially and all of the data and the numbers. So if you're a data numbers person, that would be the place for you guys, okay? And we do need board members definitely to attend those. Next item, we have Superintendent Takas, your report.
Good afternoon, Board President Buchanan, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, members of the board, and members of the community. As we enter the middle of September, at this point, the school year is about 1/8 of the way completed. We do need to remember that every day within every school year matters to our students, our families, and our staff. So we need to make sure that we have a plan and that we're keeping with that plan and we're doing what we planned on doing. This year at the 2 campuses, we continue to focus on the implementation of PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support. But we're also hyper-focused on classroom instruction and language acquisition via the implementation of the bilingual grammar curriculum program, as well as the alignment to the Arizona State academic standards. Teachers are doing a wonderful job of submitting their lesson plans each week, and as I've already mentioned, during the month of August, our educational leaders have averaged about 30 informal classroom walkthroughs on each campus. These walkthroughs are not evaluative or punitive, but provide the principals, the ODD team, the SPED director, and myself the opportunity to recognize what's going well in the classrooms, as well as where we need to provide teachers additional support. One item on the board agenda tonight is our request for you, the board, to approve our proposed 301 performance pay checklist. As shared in the board documents, before we ever bring this to the board for approval, a team of teacher representatives, principals, and directors revisit the 301 checklist from the previous year and brainstorm additions and deletions. Once that team has finalized the checklist, it is sent out to all ASDB teachers in August, and it requires 70% of those teachers to accept any of the changes. On August 15th, this checklist was sent out to all of our teachers. 141 teachers responded, and only one of those 141 teachers did not approve the checklist. So that percentage easily surpasses the 70% that we require. The 301 checklist is something we bring forward annually. 7 of the 8 items on the 301 checklist are the ones that you did approve last year. There might be a word here or there that changed, but it's pretty much the same thing. The one additional item this year acknowledges that if staff get an additional certification or graduate from a VI or HI program or are nationally board certified, that they can count that towards meeting the criteria of the 301 checklist. So as this school year is in full swing, I do want to acknowledge what both the superintendent and assistant superintendent said. There are a lot of external things happening throughout the agency, but at the end of the day, we need to stay focused on what's best for our students for the next 7/8 of the school year. Alphonse Bertillon, a French police officer from the 1800s, who was the pioneer of the mugshot and the pioneer of using measurements and proportions of the human body to identify criminals, was quoted saying that one can only see what one observes, and one only observes things which are already in their mind. As we look around the agency, it's easy to let things like decreased enrollment, decreased revenue, the needs for building improvements, to be the only things that we observe or think about in our mind. Although these items are important and impactful, we all need to take the time to also observe what we're doing well for the kids that we're still serving, be it if it's in the ELP, where we have data that we're making a great impact on the little ones in our birth to 3 and preschool programs, be it the innovations occurring within our itinerant services, or how far we've come in the 2-day schools in making ELA materials accessible, the implementation of the BGC curriculum, and a million other things that I'm sure I'm forgetting, and my phone's going to light up here in the next 10 seconds with people telling me things that I forgot to mention. So we'll put it over here. All right. As the context of the agency continues to change, we need to remember to keep in mind, what are we doing, what's best for the kids we serve, and how do we continue to be innovative, be it in our itinerant services, our day schools, or our ELP. As I mentioned in May, and I mentioned in July, we are not here to preserve tradition for its own sake or to resist change out of habit. We are here to serve the students throughout Arizona who are hard of hearing, deaf, have vision loss, or are blind. That is the end of my report. Please let me know if you have any questions.
No questions? Do you have a question, Bill?
Is there an approval of those districts that are listed here? Is that part of this, or is that another item?
That is an action item.
To come?
Correct. Number.
Okay. I'll wait.
It's part of the consent.
It's the next item.
Oh,
Good.
sorry, I jumped ahead.
That's fine.
Do you have any questions about those renewal district agreements? Okay. Thank you so much for your report. Moving on, we are at 2.1, which is an action item. It's the approval of the consent agenda consistent with board policy to include items 3.2, 3.3, 5.1, 5.2, 6.2, 6.3, 7.2, 7.4, and 7.5. I'll give you guys a second to look over those really quick, and then I will need a motion to approve, or I'm open to hearing any comments about these items.
Are you looking for a motion to approve all those items? This is Bill.
That's correct.
So moved.
I have a question then in terms of approving those. Since I'd only been able to read through some of these policies in advance of the meeting, I have not had a chance to read all of those. I'm a little hesitant to say approve them all, given that I had some questions on some specific ones, not having had a chance to read the others. So I would ask that this item be held, tabled, or not moved on until all those policies can be looked at, especially since there's 3 of us that are new. I don't want to speak for Diana or Shauna, but I will speak for myself, is that I want to make sure that the policy is saying what I'm thinking that it should say, and given I've already found a couple things that I've had the questions with, I'd like to hold that vote if possible. I don't know how you term that, but.
Are you speaking specifically about 3.2, the renewal of the agreements, or are you speaking about the entire collection of action
The renewal of the
items?
agreement specifically, I've looked at some pieces of that agreement, and there are some things in there that I think we need to add to it. But I haven't had a chance to look at all the policies, so I would feel remiss in not doing my due diligence to at least have read the policy to see what they say before I say, yeah, let's go ahead with those, and only find out later that there may be a question. I also recognize that this is the second reading of these, and so they've already had one chance to go through. I would like to recommend that we hold on that and give us, the new board members, a chance to at least look through those. I will look through those. I'll leave that to Diane and Shauna to do that themselves.
I'm sorry, Bill. I would just like to clarify which points are you specifically concerned about?
All the policies. And
7.2?
Well, I would have to look at this whole agenda again to write all the policies down. But the interim agreement specifically is one. I looked at policy JIKD, JKA, or JKD. I've got some other notes here on them, but I haven't had a chance to read them all. So I'd like to have an opportunity to at least read them all. If I've got questions about them, be able to ask questions. So if there's clarification that the team needs to give us, then I'd feel more comfortable about having done my due diligence in reviewing those.
This is Superintendent Reichman. I think that Dr. Kaler is speaking of 7.2, and that is that policies under the consent agenda. This is, as he stated, the second read for those policies. If Dr. Kaler is not ready to approve those under the consent agenda, he can move to remove 7.2 from the consent agenda prior to voting. So.
I don't know what to say. I'm sorry.
This is Board Member Bove. I would move to remove 7.2 from the consent agenda. I need a second.
If I may
Yes, you will
amend that
need a
and add
second.
7.1, because I'm seeing 2 specific policies that I did have a chance to review.
I don't see 7.1 on the
JICK,
consent
JKD.
agenda.
I'm sorry?
7.1 is not on the consent.
I'm looking
agenda.
at board routine items, discussion action
correct.
items.
Correct,
Correct.
but it's
It is
not on
agenda,
the,
it's not on the consent agenda, so it would be separate.
Okay, my apologies. I'll get this thing down here pretty quick. So the
This is,
consent.
if I could,
Yes.
Bill, just a moment. This is Superintendent Reichman. So in talking of the consent agenda, it is only those specific numbers that Brittany read off under 2.0. So those are the items on the consent agenda. One of those is 7.2, which contains those policies that are on a second read. The other, 7.1, is not under the consent agenda.
Okay,
So that will be handled separately already. It's already a separate action item.
okay.
Or a separate, excuse me, not an action item, an informational item. Okay? So Linda Bove has
Correct.
already made a motion to remove 7.2 from the consent agenda.
correct.
So we will need a second for that and then a vote.
I'll second that. This is Bill. I will second that.
All in
Excellent.
favor of removing 7.2 from the agenda? Aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, we're removing 7.2 from the agenda, the consent agenda item. All right, with that removed, we now need a motion to approve the consent agenda items consistent with 3.2, 3.3, 5.1, 5.2, 6.2, 6.3, 7.4, and 7.5.
Can we do them one at a time so that I'll scroll through and see where, I apologize for the delay in this, but I want to make sure that I'm responding to what the consent request is.
They are listed right here in your board docs, which ones they are. So 3.2 is the renewal of the district agreements.
Okay, that one, I see that one, I've got
Okay.
that. So if you want to do them, can we do them one at a time?
This is, as in you want us to remove all of them and then just vote separately on each one.
If that's a possibility. I don't know how all that works, so I'm asking, what I'm saying is I haven't had a chance to read these. I've read some of them. I've had questions on some of them. I'm not feeling comfortable approving something that I have not read. That's my question.
This is Superintendent Reichman.
Yeah.
You do have the option of not approving the consent agenda, and you certainly can choose to do that. And if you did that, then that would mean each item that is under the consent agenda would be discussed and or voted upon individually. That would mean that you would get to stay here for a while this evening to get through that agenda.
I don't want to be a wretch, but I don't care. I'm here to serve the students and the staff and make sure the programs work. If I approve something today that I have not read, and it turns out to be a problem down the road, that creates more problems for staff, potentially more problems for teachers, more problems for students. So if it's necessary to sit tight on these now, rather than me approve, say don't, just vote for them, and then it's carried forward, and we still find problems down the road, we're going to spend more time than if we spend time on the front side. And that's all I'm asking, is to have time to read something that I'm expected to approve. Does that make sense?
I very much understand your
Okay.
position on this. If you would like, you can make a movement to not approve this, and we'll take a vote on that. And if that vote passes, then we've removed all of them, and we'll go line by line, as Superintendent Reichman stated. Otherwise, if that fails, we will need a movement to pass all of these with another vote. Okay? Would you like to make that movement?
So all of them by numbers in one fell swoop, we could say no.
You would have to
So
make a movement
motion.
to remove
All the consent
all
items?
of these items from the consent agenda.
Okay. I'll make a motion, remove them all, and then if we need to go through certain ones and come back and say, let's approve that as an individual item, that would be fine. I'm sorry.
Except 7.2,
We already did that one, yeah.
right? Just as a reminder. And this is Diana. I have a question. I would like to get a sense is there a sense of urgency for all of these to be approved tonight? What would happen if we postpone these to a future date, if we don't feel that we have enough votes to support approving it? What then?
So the reason that we have all of these grouped together into one kind of big consent agenda is because a lot of these are routine action items that we as the board routinely approve almost every meeting, depending on what some of these are. Obviously, we don't always, the 301 performance-based plan is a yearly thing. The use of state land trusts is something that we frequently, routinely approve here on the board. The B5.2 is also routinely something that we approve. We have new rental agreements that come up, monthly, weekly, whatever it is. So this is a routine item that we do. The teacher contracts is a routine item. Obviously, we have to offer our teachers contracts so we can educate our students. With policies, we've removed 7.2, but I'm going to speak to that. With policies, We as a board very, very, very routinely go through policies, and we have our head of Director of Government Policy that she is the one, it's Maria Murphy, and she goes through and she makes sure that our policies are in alignment with policies from the Arizona State Board, that make sure that we're following those policies, that our policies also follow state legislature, and then also that our policies are working for us as an agency. This is a very routine item that you'll see on future agendas, probably almost every agenda. Donations is something that is also a very routine thing, and then minutes. We're approving minutes from, I believe, the July meetings. That's also a very routine board item. So we kind of like to group all of these together instead of going through each one individually, since they are routine items. And they have been provided to you guys for the past week, because we post our agenda the week before the meeting, to give you guys time to go through everything so you can come to the board meeting prepared. Does that answer your question, Diana?
It does. I do understand the routine items. I want to know if there is anything that if we did hold it to the next, I don't want us to impact operations. That's what my concern about this is, if there are things that end up getting tabled to the next session, the next meeting, how does that impact that? So back to Bill's question, you started to make a motion? I think maybe we interfered, and maybe you need to finish the motion you were in the process of making.
So this is Bill. The things like 301, that's not a question. State land, not a question. Rental agreements, not a question. Teacher contracts, not a question. Donations, not a question. Minutes from the past, not a question. Is that too fast? Right? Okay.
Excuse me, this is Superintendent Reichman. We do have a representative from the Arizona Attorney General's office who is here, and if you would like to ask him about open meeting law in terms of how we run the meeting and consent agenda, things like that, he's here and willing to answer questions about that.
I don't even know what to ask. So you obviously are standing there because you've got a question. So how about put your question forward, and then we'll see if we can come to some sort of a action.
Members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, my name's Joe Cada. I'm your attorney from the Attorney General's office for the moment in place of Deborah Sterling, who is retiring. So nice to meet you all and to be here. And just in light of the discussion here regarding the agenda, I just wanted to just briefly explain the purpose of the consent agenda, and then just so you can make an appropriate motion and know what you're actually doing with the motion. So as it's been said by Superintendent Reichman and others, the purpose of a consent agenda is to expedite things that aren't likely to have much controversy or discussion. And so they're put together in kind of a lump bucket, if you will, called the consent agenda, so that they can be quickly approved, and that the board can focus its time on discussing matters that might have more discussion or more opinions involved with it. But certainly any member of the board has the right to request that a matter be pulled from the consent agenda and considered separately on the general agenda, and then voted on separately, as the board had done just for 7.2 there. So I only say this just to provide a little bit more guidance on the process here. So if there are items in the consent agenda, such as items 3.2, 3.3, et cetera, just make a motion to remove the items that you would like to discuss further, and just make sure to state the item by its item number, so that way the record is clear as to what is being removed and pulled for individual consideration. Certainly, any member of the board that wants to delve into any of those items further certainly has the right to do so. But the consent agenda system is a common way of for boards to resolve matters quickly that aren't likely to be the subject of much dispute. So just a little background on that, and I know we have new board members here, and you have a new attorney here, so a lot of new people. And I'm here for any further questions on that. But essentially, what's been stated here is consistent with open meeting law. But yeah, that's the purpose of the consent agenda item. So if any member of the board still maintains that they want to pull any of them for separate consideration, just make the appropriate motion, identify it by item number, and then if it's seconded and approved, then it will be pulled from the consent agenda and placed on the general agenda. And I'm happy to take any questions right now if there's any.
So this is Bill again. So we have to say which ones we're going to pull rather than which ones we would approve?
So for meetings, it's a somewhat meticulous procedure, the motion procedure. So right now, everything except for 7.2 is within the consent agenda. And so ordinarily the consent agenda, there's a motion to approve, or the president may call for a motion to approve the items listed in the consent agenda. And at that point, if any member of the board wishes to pull an item, as had been done for 7.2, the member may make the appropriate motion to do so. And then the next question is, with the removal of that agenda item, do we have a motion to approve the remaining items? Assuming there's no motions to remove any further items. But the overall motion is to approve the items in the consent agenda. If you or any member of the board don't approve of that, then your vote is simply nay, that you don't approve. But the motion that's called for is the motion to approve the agenda items. And then at that point, if you want to remove an item, then that's a separate motion. And then the next motion would be, do we have a motion to approve what remains in there? And then that motion should state what actually is remaining in there by reference to the numbers. Then once there's a motion to approve what remains there, then the meeting continues down the agenda item, and whatever agenda item that has been pulled from the consent agenda will be discussed at whatever point it's listed on the agenda. And then so when Superintendent Reichman noted that we'd go down the agenda item there and be here for a little while, that would mean for each item there would be potential discussion and then a motion to approve it. And that's sort of how it would work. Does that answer the question, or is there anything I can expand on?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And if anyone else has questions, I am here and happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll rest for the moment.
So can I make an amended motion?
Well, does anyone have any other questions for the AG? Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Bill, are you ready to make your motion?
I'm ready to make it.
Okay.
And I appreciate that the Arizona School Board Association is a fairly well-known entity that provides policies for school districts. That's for public school districts. ASDB campus-based programs are very different, and there are some aspects and nuances of the campus programs that cannot and are not addressed through ASBA. So I think there's some pieces in there that we need to look at. To that end, then I would recommend that we pull 7.1 and 7.3, which are the policy, those are the policy ones. And
7.1 and 7.3 are not on this consent action item.
well,
So we are at 2.1 here, and those policies listed under 2.1 are the ones that we are specifically voting on right now. You have to address 7.1 and
when we come to that, okay.
when we get to those points in the
So
agenda.
let me get the 2.1 here and consent.
This is,
Contract.
Diana.
Yes, okay. All right, I see that.
I would like to move that we approve all of 3.2, 3.3, 5.1, 5.2, 6.2, 6.3, 7.4, and 7.5. That is my motion.
This is Colette, I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All
Nay.
Opposed?
Nay. I didn't catch all of those at one point to be able to read the title of each one of those.
It is
But-
all of the ones that are listed under 2.1, except for 7.2.
My mistake. Got it.
Okay.
Just
So,
one.
with one
Approve.
nay,
I approve. I'll change my vote to yes. That's fine.
uh,
I apologize.
that's okay. The motion carries. 3.2, 3.3, 5.1, 5.2, 6.2, 6.3, 7.4, and 7.5 have all been approved by the board.
And 7.2 is out. We already did that.
Yes,
Okay,
7.2
that's
is
fine.
out.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I apologize and appreciate your indulgence.
Absolutely. At this point, we've done a lot. We're going to take a quick little 10-minute break, maybe give our interpreters a little bit of a break. And we'll come back at, we'll say 5:40, okay? Thank you. it's now 5:40, so we're gonna return to the meeting. All right, everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a nice little about 10-minute break there. We're going to start with 3.1. Which is the approval of new district agreements. Interim deputy assistant tack off.
Just one moment.
Oh. Okay, sorry about that. So we're back, and we're gonna start with 3.1. The approval of new district agreements, interim deputy assistant superintendent Shackoff.
So, Board President Buchanan, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, we do have one new agreement bringing forth today. This is from Region 2, and it's with the Arizona Agribusiness and Equine Center based out of Mesa. And we're looking for approval.
This is Colette. I'll make a motion to approve the new agreement.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, motion carries. All right, we'll skip 3.2, 3. All right. Down to 4.1, information item, finance report. Kim Bittrich, Director of Business Services.
Good afternoon, Board President Buchanan, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, Deputy Assistant Superintendent Katchoff, ASDB Community. You've been provided with our most recent board report that covers the financial data for June 2024 and 2025. That's our year-end financial report. This data was covered in more detail at our most recent Finance Committee held on Wednesday, September 3rd, with Board President Buchanan and Board Member Michael Gordon. Also in attendance were Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and the Director of Blind Programs, Lisa Yancarelli. Lisa presented an overview of the blind programs offered for students statewide. The total student count provided in the report is for July 1st, showing 1966, compared to 2027 as of June 2024. The total decrease was 61 students. The number Shana provided, 1807, was as of August 1st, and the decrease that we were seeing is graduations, which accounted for 56 students, and the loss of a large school district, Levine, which accounted for 40 students. So that is some of the decrease. As of July 1st, we had 488 full-time equivalent positions, which included 8.5 at FBC. At that time, we employed 668 staff. There were 48 vacancies across the state, which included 18 teachers, 5 instructional assistants, 3 interpreters, 10 drivers, and 12 support staff. We continue to review all positions that are open prior to posting to ensure that they are required by the student's IEP, needed to reduce contracted services, staff, or to maintain continuity of operations. The highlights of the June 25 financial report shows the total revenue of $62.8 million was $600,000 higher than that of June 24 of $62.2 million. The major difference is in the decrease in general fund, the federal grants revenue and fee for service, offset by an increase in the institutional voucher revenue and the classroom site fund revenue. The increase in the classroom site fund is mostly due to the increase in the per pupil allocation. The budget fiscal year 2024 obligated expenditures of $68.2 million were $700,000 less than budget fiscal year 2025. Obligated expenditures of $68.9 million. The increases are in payroll and employee-related expenses, offset by a decrease in professional and outside services. The decrease in professional and outside services is from a decrease in contracted transportation for students. All other expenditure categories have decreased as a result of budget cuts. The financial reports show a decrease in our fund balance of $2.5 million due to the utilization of existing cash to make payments for salaries and vendors. This concludes my report of the agency's financial status, and I'm available to answer any questions.
So any questions for Kim? No? Thank you so much for your report.
Thank you.
Moving on from that, we're going to get to 6.1. This is an action item, consideration and possible action of an appeal to us as the Board of Directors. For those of you new board members here, we can vote to go into executive session where we are allowed to consult our AG about this. So in order to go into executive session, I do need a motion for the board to go into executive session over this.
I'll also move. This is Bill.
Any a second?
I'll second. This is
All
Diana.
in favor of moving into executive session, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
We have majority vote to go into executive session. Linda?
Yes.
It's, you're going to read that right there? Yeah.
Ah. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1, the board may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for the purpose of discussion and consideration of employment matters and for consultation with the board's attorney. Okay. And we are going this way? Yes. Correct? Okay.
Brittany, is there anything that I need coming into the meeting, or anything that I need to read or spiel or anything like that before we go into the meeting?
Do we have Mike back on the phone?
Still here.
Fantastic. All right, this is Board Member Buchanan. We're back from our executive meeting. I will entertain a motion for action item 6.1.
This is Colette. I will make a motion that a hearing officer handled the appeal, who will then submit to the board findings of fact and conclusion.
I would second that.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. And then we'll go down to 7.1. Discussion action item, urgent approval of revised policies, and it's going to be BCB, EE, JICK, and JKD. That's going to be Maria Murphy.
Good evening, Board President Buchanan, members of the board, new members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendents, staff members, and members of the ASDB community. For the record, my name is Maria Murphy. I am the Director of Policy and Government Relations, and I have also taken over responsibility now for what was the media department. Now it's called the ASDB Communications Department. That's my crack team right up there handling the live stream. So, hi, Linda. And so at this time, because we have a few new board members here, I'd just like to talk to you really briefly about the policies. And essentially what happens is we will receive what are called red lines advisories from the Arizona School Boards Association. And at that point, I will go ahead, I will take it under advisement. I look to see what statutes apply to us, what doesn't. I will discuss that with my ASDB subject matter experts, and then I'll make the appropriate red lines, send it on to the superintendent for review, send it on to the Attorney General's office for review, and then it comes to the ASDB board. Typically, there are two reads. There's a first read and a final read, and the first read is to give the opportunity for board members to ask questions and also to make changes if changes need to be made. And board policies are typically approved or they're changed during the second read. Sometimes, like tonight, we will have certain policies that we feel are important enough that we need to try to have them approved in one read. And board policy does allow for the board to suspend the usual process and do it in one read. And then also on the routine items, we do have regulations. This evening, typically we don't do regulations. The ASDB board is responsible for approving the policies, and the superintendent is responsible for executing the board's vision with the regulations. But sometimes we feel like there are changes that are important enough that we just need to go ahead and bring it to the board's attention. And you don't need to do anything with those. This is just kind of a courtesy heads up. This is what the superintendent and the administration is planning on doing, and to give you, the board, the opportunity to answer questions. So with that, the board has received our proposed red lines, and we have not received any public comment on those red lines, but at this time I'd like to make myself available for any questions that the board may have.
I did have a couple, this is Bill.
Of course.
And I did have a couple of questions, but I think they're going to be in greater detail than can be articulated here.
Okay.
My recommendation is that we sit tight on these particular policies, given that there's some work going on at the federal level with other federal acts that may affect both the campuses in Tucson and in Phoenix. Can you answer one question for me is, are the campuses now, the campus programs only, considered public education agencies?
The campus-based programs are considered local educational agencies, which I believe is synonymous with public educational agencies. But we are considered a local educational agency for certain limited purposes. So we are, under the statutes, our enabling statutes, considered an educational institution. And then several years ago, the legislature made some additional revisions that made us also a local educational agency for certain limited purposes, mostly for things like federal funding, the issuing of diplomas, etc. So, but for a very few limited purposes.
Does that include student discipline?
Warren?
Could you clarify, go into a little more detail on that specifically?
Student disciplinary action, specifically expulsions.
So for both of our campuses, we do have in our handbooks when it would state, based on the violation, what occurs, which could include in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, or expulsion, if it leads to that. So for our two-day campuses, yes, student discipline would be under our purview.
Okay, I understand the suspension part. I'm more specifically concerned about expulsion.
So from what I understand, based on what we have in our policy and our handbooks, we could expel a student. I could double check that. But as our two campuses are identified as LEAs, I believe that is, we can do that.
When was that designation of an LEA made?
We were made an LEA, I believe, in 2021, and according to the statute says that we are considered local LEAs for the following purposes. The first is federal education received by the state. The second is state and federal accountability, including reporting requirements. The third is providing FAPE to pupils enrolled in a campus-based model pursuant to IDEA. And 4 is graduation criteria and procedures, including diplomas and transcripts. So those are the 4 areas in which we are considered an LEA. For everything else, we would be considered an institution for educational purposes. That is my understanding. I can certainly seek clarification from the Attorney General's office.
I think I would appreciate that, given you obviously know that there's a whole series of actions that have to take place before a student receiving special ed services can be expelled. And when we're talking about an LEA or a PEA or whichever the designation is, the next step is usually an interim alternative educational placement. The way the policy reads is that would be done in a local school district, which seems inconsistent with what an LEA's responsibility would be. So I'd just like to have that clarified to know where we might stand in relation to a local school district relative to that particular student who may be considered for an interim alternative educational placement.
So, Board Member Kaler, let me just clarify. That is policy JK, which I believe is JKD, yes, which is regarding student suspension. And it says, in collaboration with the student's district of residence, a student's school district of residence may provide an interim alternative educational setting. So it is not required, it's permissive.
I can partly understand that.
Yeah.
The word may, as I read that policy, was a question for me, is then that's where the designation of an LEA versus an educational service entity came up. So yeah, I would appreciate some clarification on that.
I'm happy to get that for you.
And just for the rest of the board's information, I'm not sure what the status is of an act that was offered to the federal people that make laws, whether that's I think it's Congress. The Cogswell-Macy Act, are you all familiar with the Cogswell-Macy Act? There were some provisions in there that basically suspended an IEP for students enrolled on a campus for students that had deafness or hearing impairment. It's a troublesome act because it basically suspends all the protections of an IEP for students who are deaf or hard of hearing. My concern is that it could put a student who should be receiving services in jeopardy as a result of an expulsion that really shouldn't happen because of the protections that are offered through IDEA. I don't know that the Cogswell-Macy Act has passed. I've already made that known directly to professional organizations and asked for clarification, and I'm certainly happy to provide that if I get some. But I think it's a caution for us to make sure what that PEA-LEA designation is so that we don't get caught down the road with a potential problem, even though it may not be a problem now. It's a prevent versus holy cow. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does. And of course, I know that we can't trust AI wholeheartedly, but right now it's telling me that the Cogswell-Macy Act has not yet passed into law. It has been introduced multiple times in Congress to amend IDEA, but it has not passed at this time.
So if we stay ahead of the game, I think that would be helpful for us. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. And I'm happy to follow up with the Attorney General's office to get an answer to your question.
And I'm available to go further detail if that's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Oren.
Do we have any more questions for Maria Murphy on 7.1? 7.1.
This is Colette. I have a question. So this act would amend IDEA?
Yes.
I don't know too much about it. Colette, it's saying that it's supposed to expand and improve special education services for students with sensory disabilities. But again, this is AI, and I really don't know too much information about it. So I hesitate to give you an answer one way or the other.
What I'll be happy to do is share.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but we do need to be raising our hands and identifying ourselves again for people on the phone and for our deaf people here, okay? Thank you. Go ahead.
This is Bill. I have a rather extensive document that I shared with those in positions of federal influence, and I'll be happy to share that with the board so that you can see what it really says. Personally, it was frightening as I read it, and it seemed to me that it would be a bigger problem for students with deaf or hard of hearing, but it also has an adverse effect on students with visual impairment. I'll share that with you, Maria, and Oren, I'll share that with you as well.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to take this under advisement and talk to the Attorney General's office.
This is Bill again. Under policy JICK, I'm waiting for Maria to get there.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I appreciate your patience. I'm sorry. It's taking me a little while. And it might help if I was looking at the right set of policies. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yes.
And policy is on bullying, harassment, and intimidation.
Yes.
Okay. I think it may be helpful for some additional clarification on students of age on campuses. It's particularly campuses because the other responsibility would be that of the local school district. But students of age involved in a more than social interaction with underage students creates a problem for adult-child interactions. I know just from previous experience that it causes immense problems that sometimes staff are unaware of, or sometimes staff are aware of and choose to not necessarily act on. And I think if we have a policy statement that speaks specifically to students of age and students underage, it'll clarify for everybody what expectations in policy are.
Okay.
To that end, I'd recommend we hold those two policies.
Okay. So to be clear, Bill, you do not have an issue with the proposed change only that you would like some additional clarification
Correct.
on
That's
this.
correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
Mhm.
Do we have any other discussion or questions on 7.1 and those policies contained in 7.1? Since this is, there's no other questions, and this is an action item that they are looking for approval for, I can take a motion to approve these. Or if there's another action a board member feels needs taken, I can entertain that.
This is Bill again. Can we approve BCB and EE and not approve at this point JICK and JKD? Is that permissible?
I believe that is permissible. I think what the motion would have to state is that you would be approving the two that you're planning on approving, and you would like to bring JKD and JICK back for a second read. I think that's what the pending
Additional
Attorney General advice and pending additional revisions that you're requesting.
This is Bill. May I make that motion? I'm sorry, was there another question?
Sorry, this is Board Member Bove. Sometimes because the back and forth between two people is hard for us to follow when it's an interpreted discussion. And so when we're going through, especially when we're citing policy names, please remember that we are looking at a screen in order to find what you're talking about. And then by the time we look back up, you're finished with your sentence. So I know, especially as a fast talker, my eyes are not quite as fast as your ears are. So please bear in mind when we're doing this. This is, so where are we? I am lost because of that back and forth.
Absolutely. Do you have any questions about the back and forth and any clarification needed about that discussion first?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
This is Board Member Buchanan. So at this point of the juncture, I need a motion for this action item. Either a motion that we can approve policies BCB, EE, JICK, and JKD as they are and carry that through, or there is the possibility of making a motion to send some policies back for a second read while approving other policies.
Okay, this is Board Member Diana. Essentially, we're looking at BCB and EE. Are those the two policies that you're requesting to table?
No.
Okay, the other way around. Thank you. This is Linda. So this is our first read for all four of these policies. And just to clarify, we're potentially approving two and waiting for the other two.
This is Board Member Buchanan. We have our AG up here. Do you have a comment for us?
Yes, just a point of clarification regarding regarding a motion on item 7.1. And so for those on the phone, this is Assistant Attorney General Joe Cada. So the guidance that, I apologize, that Maria just gave as to how they handle the motion, that would be an appropriate way to do so. So if there's any policies listed within 7.1 that a board member does not want to approve, whatever motion results should reference item 7.1 expressly, and then the policies within 7.1 that the motion is directed at. So we want to tie the motion to the agenda item number, which is 7.1, and then further specify what aspect of 7.1 is being acted on. But there should be, since there are 4 policies listed within 7.1, there should be some sort of action taken on each. And so the action could be to approve them or to table them for discussion at a later point. But for purposes of the minutes of the meeting, it needs to be sufficiently clear what action is taken on what part of 7.1. So that would be my guidance and clarification. I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Is there any questions or need of clarification? Yeah.
Brittany, this is Linda. I do have a question. Can we clearly explain what each of those 4 are first, before we're deciding which one we're tabling, which one we're potentially approving, because we're just referencing these 4 real quickly. So these 4 policies that we're referencing in 7.1, can we go through individually what they are, and then we'll make potentially that motion? Again, this is Linda.
This is Board Member Buchanan. Linda, would you like me to kind of just read the titles of them and summarize them, or would you like to have Maria up to kind of give a better summarization?
The title or the name of the policy, and then a brief what is that policy about. Sorry, but I think at this point we're better off clarifying what it is that we're voting on so that I can understand and vote appropriately.
This is Board Member Buchanan. I absolutely appreciate that. And we have Maria at the podium. Would you give us a synopsis of each one of these policies, please?
I'd be happy to. So the first policy is policy BCB, which is the ASDB Board Governance and Operations, Board Member Conflict of Interest. And the change that is being proposed in this policy is basically to state that when a board member becomes aware of a potential conflict of interest, that board member needs to let the board president know that there may be a potential conflict of interest and recuse from a discussion and a vote regarding that specific agenda item. And then at the conclusion of the board meeting, the ASDB board member will complete the recusal form and return it to the board president or his or her designee. And then the recusal form will go in the special conflict of interest file. And this is an effort to just try to tighten up our procedures in response to some of the Auditor General recommendations. So we want to make sure that that's really clear.
Excellent. Thank you.
Would you like me to go on to the next one, President Buchanan? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the next one is policy EE, Transportation Services. And basically what this is doing is it is stating that ASDB provides transportation options within a 30-mile radius of the school. And then the, I believe outside, excuse me, I'm sorry, I want to make sure that I'm accurately restating this. So, what? I'm so sorry, it just went upside down on me. It literally just went upside down on me. There we go. I beg your pardon. Please be patient with me. Okay, so it's establishing the 30-mile radius of the schools, and then it states that the IEP team is going to be considering student needs regarding specialized transportations. And some of the considerations may be impact the impact of the length of the transportation on the child's education. So transportation plans are going to be developed by the IEP team based upon the individual needs of the students, and in collaboration with the district of residence, transportation plans may extend beyond that 30-mile radius. And you're going to be looking at the individual plans. The parents of students who are attending the Tucson campus and who are participating in the residential program, we're clarifying that the parents of the residential students shall transport their students to the Tucson campus before the first day of classes, and that they're responsible to pick up the student from the Tucson campus on the last day of classes. And that was a recommendation by our subject matter experts to just make that really crystal clear that that's the parent's responsibility.
Yeah, this is Bill. So the 30-mile is for daily transportation. What happens at holidays when the school is closed? Who's responsible for transporting the children home during holidays?
I believe ASDB is.
Okay, we're still doing that?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And that goes
Yes.
beyond the 30 miles?
For homegoings, yes.
For homegoing, okay.
That can go behind, yes.
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, the 30-mile radius is for day
Day
students.
students, perfect.
Okay.
Moving on to policy JICK.
JICK, the only change that we were originally contemplating is just adding clarification that any type of a complaint needs to be, the investigation and the resolution needs to be completed within 30 calendar days of ASDB's receipt of the complaint.
This is Board Member Buchanan. This is in conjunction of following with our sunset audit, is that correct?
Yes, it's a recommendation to add a finite amount of time, and 30 calendar days is what is typical. So, yes, it brings us into alignment. And then the final policy is policy JKD, student suspension. And again, what that's saying is that in collaboration with the District of Residence, the District of Residence may provide an interim alternative educational setting. Rather than saying shall. So it's making it permissive rather than mandatory.
This is Board Member Buchanan. Linda, has this satisfied what?
Yes, it does. Thank you. This is Linda speaking. I did want to ask what which policy he was referring to that he's concerned about and would like to table until the next, or submit for the second read.
This bill, there would be both policy JICK and JKD. There's a lot of nuances that go along with the interim educational placement. And I think in fairness to the local school districts as well as to staff in the campuses, that there be a better clarification, especially in light of what may be approved or partially approved through that federal act. I think it'll keep us ahead of the game. And I would rather be here saying let's be preventative rather than reactive when something happens down the road and we get into a big discussion about a particular student, and it would be a stressor for a student, parents, and others. I think we can clarify that ahead of time. I'd like to do that. And I'll be happy to work with staff and whomever on any insights I might have with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is Board Member Buchanan. Do we have clarification on everything and we are able to move forward with a possible motion?
So this bill, I'd like to move that we approve policy BCB and EE, and table, at least for some further discussion, policy JICK and JKD for a little further clarification.
Board Member Kaler, are we tabling them, or are we asking that they be brought back for a second read in November?
What's the difference?
So it's tabling is just essentially kind of putting it on hold, sort of holding it in limbo. Tabling is, I think here, if there's going to be a second read, that would, I think if it'd be
In November.
in November, there'd be a second read. So I think in this context, the proper motion should be brought back for a second read in November, and specify that. So specificity is key here. Sometimes, motions can be somewhat semantic, but semantics are necessary for the accuracy of the minutes here. So, and I would also just recommend to reference the agenda item number, so that way it's clear for the record there. So the agenda item number, as well as the policies within it and the specified action with respect to each of the policies.
Okay, thank you. So this bill, can I reword that?
Absolutely.
I make a motion that item 7.1, policy BCB and EE be approved, that policy JICK and JKD be held for a second reading, and we come back for final approval, because there's no reason to let it lying in limbo. That makes no sense. So I want to bring it back so that there's clarification. So to bring it back for second reading.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get it. We'll get it.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second. This is Diana Herron. I second.
All in favor, aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, we can move forward to 7.2. Maria, if you would still stay with us. 7.2 was removed from the original consent agenda by board member Bill for, I think, further clarification on these policies. Board member, do you have questions for Maria on these policies?
I think the question was I hadn't had a chance to read them. That was the issue, and
I'm happy to go through them if you would like me to go through them.
That's a lot to go through. This is Bill. It's a start. It's a start. Let's go ahead.
Okay. So policy IHA, which is the basic instructional program, this is in response to new legislation, which has not been actually made effective yet. It's going to be made effective, I believe, at the end of the month. However, what it is doing is it is clarifying that September 11th, Education Day, we're going to be providing age-appropriate instruction to students in any grades ages 7 to 12, because previously it was providing instruction from kindergarten on, and legislators were receiving responses that perhaps it was a little bit too traumatic for very young children. So they've clarified it, grades 7 to 12. So that's IHA. Do you have any concerns or questions about that?
And this is Bill. That's 9/11/2001 education.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that is today,
Okay.
the anniversary today. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. No questions.
The second one is IJNDB, and again, this is in response to the legislature to a new law regarding use of wireless communication devices in the classroom. And this actually was brought up in July and May, and so technically this is actually coming back for another read. And that is in response to a comment that I received by our Director of Information Technology, basically clarifying that teachers are allowed to give students access to social media platforms, but only to the extent necessary for educational purposes, and we need to make sure that we have prior principal approval and documented parental consent. So previously, I believe it was just the teacher with parental consent, and Director Creasy felt like it would be a good idea to have that added layer of approval in there, so that was the change.
This is Bill again. Is that cell phone restriction on cell phone usage?
Cell phones,
Basically.
social media, yeah, etc.
Okay.
So. Alrighty, mandatory reporting, policy JLF. Again, I believe that this is in response to legislation that has since changed, and it's basically stating that ASDB staff members, including members of the ASDB board and including substitute teachers, anybody who has responsibility for the care or treatment of a minor and who reasonably believes that a minor has been abused is a mandatory reporter. So, and it also clarifies that that essentially, I believe that a report to like an SRO or a school safety officer does not satisfy the statute, that it has to be to a law enforcement officer. Policy JLIF, sex offender notification, basically states that, again, this is in response to legislative changes, and what it is doing is it is adding level 1 offenders who have been convicted of a dangerous crime against children, level 2 offenders, and that the school needs to be notified if the offender has legal custody. Policy JR, which is student records, we're adding ESSA in there because it was not previously in the list of all of the federal laws that we comply with. So it's basically stating, and for those who may not know what ESSA stands for, it's for the Every Student Succeeds Act.
This is Bill. Could you repeat that again? Every student?
Every Student Succeeds
Every student
Act.
succeeds, yes. Thank you.
It's also adding information on what is considered directory information. And that's it. Do you have any questions for me?
All right. Thank you so much, Maria, for going through those with us.
Sure.
This is a consent agenda item. We can have a motion to pass these if we so feel they can be passed now.
This is Colette. I'll make a motion to pass consent agenda item 7.2.
This is Bill. I'll second.
This is the Attorney General's office. I would just recommend that the motion be restated to say approve the items. Just again, semantic, but just to be clear for the record.
What did I say? Okay. This is Colette. I recommend that consent agenda items for 7.2 be approved. And just wait. And what else?
So I said the word recommend, but you say the word move. I moved to. So it was my recommend. You had said recommend. So just make clear that you're making a motion. I move.
Oh, I move.
And I apologize. I don't mean
That's
to be
okay. That's
semantic.
it's education for all of us. This is Colette. I move that consent agenda items in 7.2 be approved.
This is Bill. I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye. Well done.
Hearing none opposed, we can move forward to, I lost it, hold on one second. Did we approve 7.3?
I think we're on 7.3.
Yeah, okay, we are on 7.3. And Maria, that's you again.
Yes, that's me.
So that's 7.3 is an information and possible discussion of the addition and revision of regulations AC-R, EE-RA, EE-RB, FA-RA, and JB-R.
Shall I go through one by one?
Could you maybe sum up why we are seeing these on our consent agenda? Let's start there.
Yes. So actually, President Buchanan, this is not on the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's not on the consent agenda. It's an information item. This is a courtesy that we are giving to the board, letting the board know that we are planning on making these changes to the regulation. The superintendent has the ability to create regulations that execute upon the board's vision in terms of policies. So ACR, which is our non-discrimination and equal opportunity policy, basically is adding the timelines and also referring to the complaints portal that we have created, and this is in response to the Auditor General's recommendations with the sunset audit. Again, we're just trying to tighten up those documents. And I believe the other regulations, so EERA, which is transportation services, that is basically stating that we're going to be transporting in accordance with the IEP and the students' needs that the IEP team collectively decides. And then EERB, this is basically just adding on that if students are not picked up at their activity route stops, then we're going to refer back to the previous regulation. So we have certain guidelines for how we're going to transport appropriately. And then finally, for facilities development, this is in response to the Auditor General's recommendations, and what we're again trying to do is tighten up and talk about how we're going to coordinate with ADOA, the Department of Administration, because ADOA, the General Services Division, is the organization that's responsible to manage all our projects and all our associated funding. So it's basically just clarifying if we receive something in excess of $50,000, ADOA is going to be managing that project. If it is less than $50,000, we're anticipating that we will be able to handle that internally within our own operations department. Is that correct, Albert? Yes, I'm getting the nod.
And these are, this is Board Member Buchanan, these are first.
These are not first read
Okay.
or second read. These are regulations. We're, as a courtesy, letting the board know. This is what we need to do. And then, I'm sorry, I believe that there is still one more regulation, and that regulation is equal educational opportunities. And again, what we're doing is we're noting the complaints portal, we're directing people to the complaints portal, and we're setting a timeline.
Fantastic, I appreciate that. Do we have any questions about this or comments from Maria?
This is Bill, just a quick one. Anytime you come with a policy with an R after it, that's a regulation.
Yes, so.
Which does not require our approval.
Which does not require the approval. So the way our policy manual works is there's the policies. If you see a -R, it means it's a regulation, which is a term of art for procedure. Yes. And then if you see an E next to it, it's an exhibit. So it's a form.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you so much, Maria.
Is there indication is there a dash after a policy, or is it just the list? This is Linda for clarification. So -R is regulation, -E is exhibit, but is there another dash that we should be looking for as far as what requires board action?
That's a really good question, and no. So basically, the policy has either 3 or 4 letters, and then if you see a dash next to it, and it's either going to be a regulation or an exhibit after the dash, but one.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you again, Maria.
Thank you.
What a refresher. Thank you.
Moving forward, we are at 8.1, call to the public for non-agenda items, which I received none for. So we have 8.2, discussion and possible action item, agenda items for next regular board meeting, which will be held November 13th in Tucson. Is there anything that we would like to see on the agenda next in 2 months? And then, as always, if there's nothing here that you want to bring up, you can contact Superintendent Reichman or myself. Hearing none, we can move forward to 9.1, which is adjournment.
This is Bill.
I move to adjourn the meeting. This is Linda. It's currently 6:58 p.m.
I need a second.
This is Bill, and in advance of seconding that, I really appreciate the indulgence of the board in my not having the opportunity to read all those policies in advance. It's important the staff understands what all they are and some of the questions that are being asked. So I really appreciate your indulgence in that. I assure you it will not happen again. I second the motion for adjournment.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing
Aye.
none opposed, the meeting is adjourned at 6:58 p.m.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.